worry, it's not caffeinated. I've been drinking a lot of espresso and coffee today. I kind of get headaches if I don't. I'm kind of addicted to caffeine. Hi, Internet! Welcome back. I kind of had a lot of fun doing a deck discussion earlier, so I'm kind of doing another deck discussion, like, right now. This time I'm going to be talking about my Kagero deck, which is in Japanese for reals, not just for fakes, like my Narukami deck was, which you should watch if you didn't. This is, to be honest, a pretty straightforward Dragonic Overlord The End deck, or G-Endo. It's kind of funny. Apparently, the is most of the time za, but for, in Japanese at least, because it's Dragonic Overlord The End. But for Dragonic Overlord The End, it's actually G, as in the. So it's kind of funny that they changed the pronunciation, apparently, on how cards are written phonetically. So it's The End, not The End. I kind of like The End better. Anyway, so yeah, I'll be going through trigger setup, etc. Yeah, hi. This time I'm shooting it from a different angle, so that way hopefully there's a little bit less glare, because there was a lot more than I expected. Yeah, I've got this deck sleeved, and double sleeved actually, in the red point sleeves that you can get, from Bushiroad for getting points in Japanese Vanguard packs. Unfortunately, you can't get those in English, which, to be honest, is the biggest detriment for the English version to me, because that was a lot of fun. It means that you open a pack, and you're getting your 30th Apollon, and there's a golden point in the back worth 3 points, and you're like, this is better than a box. And you're like, yay! Points are awesome. So is soda, to be honest. I've been drinking a lot today, but only the normal kind of drink. But anyway, starting Vanguard is the one that every Kagero player uses. Conroe, because he's good. He's just Counterblast 1, retire him, and you can search for any grade 0 or 1. He's really useful just because he's useful. I mean, there's not much else to say. If you have too many grade 3s in your hand, you can search for Airmo in the beginning. If you know you're playing against a deck that only has a 10k Vanguard, such as non-Spectral Duke Dragon Gold Pally, then you grab a you'll grab a 7k booster like Genjo. If you don't think that you're going to get Dragonic Overlord before you ride to the end, then you go for Airmo, because you're not going to be hitting 21. If you need to hit 21, then you grab Bar. Whatever. He's very useful. He makes your early play playable. Anyway, for triggers, I run 4 heal, 4 draw. Yes, I play 2 different kind of draw triggers. It means that people who look at my deck can't tell exactly how many I run, because they see 2 different types. And because I like the art for Monica better. And I play 8 crit. Note that this might become 9 crit, and I would run 3 different kinds of crit triggers, except I can't find any of my TARs, because I haven't looked for them in so long. This is pretty standard. It's the end, so it's big on Persona Blasting and threats, because suddenly your Vanguard hitting is 2 threats. 1, you're hitting and you're risking crit triggers, and 2, flipping crit triggers on the end is exceptionally nasty and can end the game at turn 3, simply because of his Persona Blast letting him stand. If you don't know what a Persona Blast is, I'll get to it later. It's just a technical term for a normal thing. Anyway, that is my trigger layout. It's pretty straightforward, actually. It's interesting. Up until recently, draw saw like no competitive play whatsoever. It's only recently that people started playing draw in a lot of decks, and that's because a lot of decks started running off of started running a lot more different kinds of combo or viable field stuff. And I guess just because people didn't quite realize just how good draw was until recently. I've always been a huge proponent of draw. Anyway, my grade 3 lineup, you can probably guess, is 4 Dragonic Overlord The End, and 4 regular Dragonic Overlord. Note, 2 of these are SPs. Man, was I happy to pull those. If you watch my other video on Narukami, I went through the math on the chances of getting a grade 3 if you only run 4 copies of it. It's about 75% chance of getting at least 1 copy of a grade 3 before you ride to grade 3, assuming that you're player 1, which means you have the least number of draws, because you're missing a drive check if you're player 1. Player 2 gets 2 drive checks, player 1 just gets 1, before they go grade 3 anyway. You have about a 75% chance of seeing a specific grade 3 if you run 4 copies of it, which means 3 out of 4 games you're going to see Dragonic Overlord. Which means that you won't miss the cross-ride, because I would argue, well, first, cross-ride. The word, some people might not know what it is because it was coined in the anime basically alone. A cross-ride is a grade 3 that works specifically stronger by having another grade 3 in Soul. So it's meant to be a second ride, like you're riding to grade 4, but without extra drive checks or anything. Dragonic Overlord The End, for example, is an 11k Vanguard at base, but it gets plus 2,000 power if Dragonic Overlord is in Soul. Which means that if you ride to Dragonic Overlord and then to Dragonic Overlord The End, he is a 13k Vanguard all the time, which is pretty huge. It means that you're definitely going... a lot of things that are usually 10k guards, because a lot of decks aim around hitting the 16,000 swing, those are only 5k guards from your hand. This adds up a lot, and it's arguably the strongest strength of Crossride. Dragonic Overlord's The End's other ability, however, is what's known as a Persona Blast, which simply means a Persona Blast is a cost that is discarding another copy of the card. So Dragonic Overlord The End has the ability, when this attack hits, note that it does not need to hit a Vanguard. You may Counterblast 2 and discard another copy of Dragonic Overlord The End. So Counterblast 2 and Persona Blast. And then you may stand Dragonic Overlord The End, and he keeps Twin Drive. This means that it's Counterblast 2, discard a card, to draw 2 cards and 2 more drive checks, which is ridiculous. And it's also what makes him threatening, because if you're swinging at Vanguard and Vanguard alone, it means that if they guard so that one trigger will go through, suddenly a crit trigger not only goes through and they take 2 damage, but they don't know if you have a copy of Dragonic Overlord The End in hand or not. If you do, you're now swinging again. In this deck, it's important to always have 2 unflipped Counterblasts, so that way the threat of the end is always there. It basically means your opponent can never let the attack go through. Otherwise, you're risking the chance of not only giving card advantage, but damage advantage, because man, that can hit for a lot of damage. Note that there's another cross-ride, which is Phantom Blaster Overlord. It's specifically, it's a cross-ride for Shadow Paladin, and if you have Phantom Blaster Dragon in Soul, it's a 13,000. The two play very, very starkly different, and I personally think this is better. The difference is Phantom Blaster Overlord's ability is that when it attacks, you may Counterblast 3 and Persona Blast, so discard another copy of Phantom Blaster Overlord, to give it plus 10,000 and plus 1 crit. So Phantom Blaster Overlord makes the attack hit, while Dragonic Overlord The End says, you can never let this attack hit. Also, Shadow Paladin has a grade 1 called Nightmare Painter, which says when this card is played to a Vanguard or Rearguard, you may move up to 1 Shadow Paladin from hand to Soul. There's probably a restriction that you can only do it if you have a Shadow Paladin Vanguard, but whatever. What it means, though, is that you don't actually have to ride to Phantom Blaster Dragon first, and if you don't, you can fix it later. That is not the case with Kagura. They have no card that can do that. The only 2 things that they could do to Soul Charge a Dragonic Overlord other than ride it is either play Flame Edge Dragon, which says that when it attacks and the attack hits, you may Soul Charge. This is pretty unreliable and generally not a good idea. I tried it before, and it's honestly not that good. Or by playing Vortex Dragon, which is the exact same. One thing to note is that while it may seem like if you ride to Dragonic Overlord The End, and then get both a copy of The End and Overlord in Soul, that might be a good idea to ride to Overlord and then ride to The End again, so you now have 1 in Soul. This is never a good idea. This will take 2 turns to do, you're exhausting cards from your hand, and you're exhausting what would have been a Persona Blast for Dragonic Overlord The End. If you miss the ride, just deal with it. Generally, my rule of thumb with Conroe is that if I don't have a Dragonic Overlord in the hand, I'm not going to assume that I'm going to get one. So I use Conroe to search for an Airmo in that case. Because if the end is only an 11k, there's not a very high chance that I'm going to be making it a 13k. I can't, actually. So there's no cards that'll let me hit for 21. So there's no, or even 20. So there's no real point in searching for big power cards. So I go for a utility card like Airmo. More delicious. But if I do have Dragonic Overlord and the end in hand, then I look at my opponent's deck. If it plays a 10k Vanguards and not 11ks, then I'll search for a Dragon Monk Genjo, simply because 7k power is enough and it saves my Baris for later. If it's an 11k deck, such as Spectral Duke Dragon, then I'll search for a Bar and put him behind, and then 21k swing lulls. Anyway, that's my grade 3 lineup. It's kind of standard. Note that Dragonic Overlord The End is a fantastic rearguard, and Counterblast 3 for plus 5,000 power is perfectly fine if it wins you the game. Anyway, my grade 2s are I play 3 Burning Horn Dragon, 3 Wyvern Strike Tejas, and 3 Bellicosity Dragons. Burning Horn Dragon says that you have an Overlord. If you have a Vanguard with Overlord in its name, it gets plus 3,000 power during your turn. So this swings for 12, which means with bar behind it, it swings for 20, which is beautiful. And it's part of the reason why I save bars where possible and put something else behind Dragonic Overlord The End, because I need bars for him. I also need bars for Tejas. Tejas is my favorite card in the game, hands down. If you don't know what Tejas does, his ability is that in addition to attacking the front 3 units of your opponent's field, he may also attack the rear row of the column that he's in. So if I have a field that looks like this, and then my opponents are like this, and they're a scrub like Morikawa, and they play Dragonic Overlord at the end like this, all 3 of these Tejases can hit all 3 here. This Tejas can attack here, which is great, because generally the rear row is a sanctuary for your units. You move them into the back if you don't want them to be hit for some reason, and your grade 1s you can safely believe can't be attacked. Kagura laughs at this idea and destroys your grade 1s. Tejas plus bar makes 16k, which is both a 10k guard against 11k vanguards, which is the swing that you're kind of aiming for, plus against rear row 6ks, which is good tech stuff, and stuff like Charge Gull or Lightning Charge Angel, the stuff that Soul Blasts the various limit breakers in clans to swing for 21k. It means that that's a 15k guard, and that's just not going to happen. Also, copies of Flame of Hope and Airmo, like the grade 1 Sangremal for Royal Paladin, also have that much guard. So it's very good at sniping lower power but really useful grade 1s. And Bellicosity unflips, and unflipping is beautiful, because Dragonic Overlord The End is only Counterblast 2, and Conra is only Counterblast 1, which means that you can keep doing that stuff, and keep Troll laughing at your opponent, because you're retiring all their grade 1s, and suddenly they don't have anything to boost with, which means that they probably won't even be hitting The End. My grade 1 lineup is I run 2 Dragon Monk Genjo, 2 Flame of Hope Airmo, 2 Flame of Promise Airmo, 3, 3 Dragon Monk, something Kimnara. Really, really broken Kimnara. 4 bars and 3 bars. Man, I have too many grade 1s. I just run a bunch of different, because Conro trades for any one of these, which means I can run 2 of this, 2 of this, 2 of this, safely, and always find it when I need it. Dragon Monk Genjo is, against 10k decks, he works great behind The End. Plus, if I have something like Burning Horn Dragon, this guy, the grade 2 who's a 12k, and I really need to card cycle, I can rest him. His ability is I can rest him during my main phase to discard and draw. So I can rest him behind this guy, discard and draw, and then still swing for a 5k guard with this guy. And a 5k guard is enough. It is still a card from hand, and if they don't have any 5ks or they don't want to guard with their grade 1s and 2s, then it's suddenly also a 10k guard. This is never a bad thing. Airmo's just great. He is super, super utility. If he boosts and the attack hits, discard to draw. He's a great choice behind The End. He's a great choice behind a lot of guys. Especially if you know you're not going to be hitting 13k with The End. So you're not hitting 20, so you may as well not even try. Other good, and then Flame of Promise Airmo is because you're going to be riding from, you're not going to have a 0 in Soul because Conro moves out. We have a 1, a 2, and a Dragonic Overlord. This means that you've got 2 turns of Soul Blast, which means for 2 turns, you can make a Rearguard Dragonic Overlord, or Dragonic Overlord The End, swing for 21,000, which is awesome. Plus 1 for each time you use Kimnara, who is ridiculous. Kimnara is just Counterblast 1, move this card to Soul, retire one of your opponent's grade 1s. This might be the best card in the game, because it's just 1 for 1, you remove one of your guys to remove one of their guys, but you get to choose when and where, and you get to snipe, and if you go, they only have 2 charge goals, and I see both of them on the field, you retire the one behind their Vanguard, and suddenly they don't have anything to replace it with. It makes people cry, and it's hilarious. Plus, since when you use its ability it moves the soul, it gives another bit of fuel for Flame of Promise Airmo. Bar is bar. 8Ks are beautiful, especially in this deck, because you've got Burning Horn, who plus bar swings for 20, you've got Dragonic Overlord The End, who plus bar swings for 21. And Tejas, who with bar swings for 16. Bars are valuable, protect them. And 3 Flash Shield, or 3 Null Guards, this is pretty staple. Some people might run 4, I personally like only 3. 4, I feel like I draw too many of them and I don't have anything else to guard with. To be honest, it comes down to preference. 3 versus 4 is really just a playstyle decision. I would really suggest running 4 if you play more than 3 grade 3s, or if you play more than 8 grade 3s, or if you play more than, or if you don't play grade 3s that filter themselves. Dragonic Overlord The End is a fantastic, filters himself with his Persona Blast, and Dragonic Overlord is a fantastic 11k swinger with a really good counterblast, so he's great to play to the field anyway. So there's never really a downside to having one of them in hand, whereas something like your third Asura Kaiser, that's different. This deck just hits and hits and hits and hurts. Dragonic Overlord The End is a constant threat. Burning Horn and regular Dragonic Overlord swing for a lot. It runs consistently, it runs well, and I have 2 SPs of Dragonic Overlord The End, and I'm proud of that. This is my big beat. This is the deck that I play when I want to be serious. It still requires some tuning. It might need 1 less draw trigger, for example. I still need to test it. And I might want to put in another grade 2 or 2. I'm not sure yet. But so far, it's worked very well for me. From what I've seen, there's been a lot of Dragonic Overlord The End's decks in the regional championships in Japan. Generally, what I see is that their grade 2s are either... the grade 2s are Burning Horn Dragon, something else, and then Nihalim for beat stick swings, or Bellicosity Dragon, something else, and Berserk Dragon, because then that unflips Berserk Dragon and fuels, or unflips Counterblast used by Berserk Dragon. I don't like Berserk Dragon in this deck, because effectively he's Limit Break 4, because I always want 2 unflipped damage for Dragonic Overlord The End, because if you don't, he's not really a threat. And when he's a threat, he is a must-guard. And so that means a lot to me. And Bellicosity makes sure that there's always 2 unflipped damage. And he's a 9k power. That's really good. I don't think it's worth it for the extra 1k power, especially since only grade 1, or only the 6k Airmo would benefit from Nihalim versus Bellicosity. The rest are still swinging for not quite enough, or swinging for more than enough. Anyway, that's the deck. I hope you like. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your folks, Vanguard. Yo. Have fun.